My wife is demanding that I double the child support, claiming my little beautiful baby Daisy is sick. Well, I don't believe her, so I decide to show up unannounced, and I make one of the most shocking discoveries of my entire existence. I'm 41 male. My ex-wife, we'll call her Susan, demanded that I double my child support because our daughter Daisy is very sick, but I believe I'm sending more than enough. I met Susan on a dating app a few years back, and I believe I'm out of time, so I'm swiping right at everyone I find attractive. Honestly, I could not believe my luck when Susan swiped right as well and messaged me. I'm not the kind of guy who turns heads with his looks, but I was getting older and wanted to find somebody to settle down with and build a family and a home. Susan, on the other hand, was in her early 20s, a college student, drop-dead gorgeous. Our personalities just clicked, and after a couple of days of chit-chat, we decided to have our first date. On our first date, we went to a restaurant. We bonded over, shared a classic literature and theater, and our conversation flowered instantly. Afterward, we wandered to a nearby park, laid down on the back of my truck, and stared at the stars while talking about life. After that night, I could not help but think that I might have stumbled upon somebody special. 3 months went by before I asked her to move into my apartment, and she agreed. I had the opportunity to get to know her more, and I fell for her each time I watched her in my arms, eyes closed, or when she was happily drinking her coffee while I cooked our breakfast. Our apartment was always full of laughter. I was madly in love with her. A little background about me. I'm a software engineer, earning a monthly salary of 5 digits at the time. As I've mentioned, I was ready to settle down and have children, and I was more than willing to provide for us, but Susan wanted to focus on her studies and that she had big plans for her future. I respected her decision and decided to wait, thinking she would eventually come around to the idea of building a family, and whenever I opened it up to her, she just brushed it off. However, one night when we were both drunk and doing the deed, she said that she was ready. I don't know what I was thinking. I knew she wasn't ready, but her drunk state just told me otherwise, and the pressure of old age is creeping on me. After 2 weeks, she told me she was pregnant, and I was actually jumping with joy. But the moment did not last long as I saw tears forming in her eyes. She was not happy. Our relationship moved pretty fast, and Susan stopped going to college to focus on her pregnancy. But I promised her that she could go back once our daughter was delivered, and I also volunteered to pay for it. We then moved to a cozy 3-bedroom house with a backyard that's surrounded by a white fence that I bought for our growing family. The living room was full of our pictures, the bathroom full of his and her things, matching mugs, slippers, towels. We ended up getting married a year after our daughter was born. She was 21 and I was 32 when our daughter was born. Daisy. Daisy was born with a congenital heart disease that she inherited from me. Obviously, I have the disease, so I committed to living a healthy life to see myself build the family I dreamt of. Early moments with Daisy were full of doctor's appointments, medications, and keeping a close watch on our little girl. The fear was always there, lurking in the background. Despite the situation, Daisy remained a cheerful girl who loved to make joy and silly pranks. Susan, knowing our daughter was sick, decided not to go back to school. She wanted to focus on caring for our child. Although Daisy's condition is not life-threatening with proper care, we still needed to give her a healthy environment and lifestyle. Susan became a housewife and was responsible for taking care of Daisy, while I got busy working my butt off. Although I was earning enough, as I was afraid Daisy's condition might worsen, I was preparing for the worst. I admit I barely had time for my baby girl, as my mind was occupied by work, but I did try my best to bond with her whenever I could. After years of this setup, I noticed Susan was getting tired of the situation. I'm not naive. I know she missed her school, her friends, and her easygoing life. Sometimes I see her looking at her college friends' Instagram, staring at their posts and their stories, and I constantly remind her that it was cool if she wanted to go out and party, and I could look after Daisy. Well, sometimes she did agree, but most of the time she just turned down my offer. When Daisy was 7, that's when Susan reconnected with most of her college friends. She started going out with them, partying all night. Although I'm very happy for her, I thought it was unfair for her to leave Daisy with me whenever she parties since I just go out to work and I'm exhausted. Arguments became frequent and I communicated this with her. She told me that I'm selfish since that's the only way she gets to be herself and that we should get a nanny. We tried looking for one, but we could not just find one like we liked and trusted. So I told Susan that she should stop the late night trips with her friends until we find a nanny. She didn't agree to do this and said that she did not want to miss out on all the fun like what happened years ago. So I ended up threatening her that I would not give her money if she did not agree. At that time, I just thought that she was doing very unfair things to me, as I was always working while she was partying. What's a little sacrifice for the sake of our daughter, right? She just needs to wait until we found the right nanny, but no, she decides to be resentful. I don't even know what to do. She did not take my decision lightly. She was slowly getting addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, which was harmful to Daisy, so this became the reason why we argued from then on. Fast forward a few years. Susan and I have grown apart. She was drifting away from me, her eyes full of resentment, and her voice laced with bitterness, blaming me for why she developed an addiction. I tried to help her recover from it because not only will she benefit from it, but also our daughter. But I've had enough. I admit I'm part of the problem since I was too focused on my job and was not able to give some of my time to her. Anyways, I didn't want my daughter growing up in a household where her parents were constantly at odds, and I figured that co-parenting might be the best solution. So I filed for a divorce, which she agreed to as long as she was taking custody of Daisy. Of course, I did not agree, but she promised me that she would change and would attend counseling and therapy. I watched her for months to see if she would do what she promised, and she did not disappoint me. She was getting better and was becoming the Susan I knew when we started to date. Her smile even returned, and her laughter filled our home once more, just like before. As much as I want to be with them, I don't want to be the reason for someone's despair. I agreed with the setup, considering that I also needed to move to another country as I accepted a work opportunity for a year. After the divorce, Susan confessed that she felt like she'd thrown away her youth and missed out on all the fun her friends were having. She blamed me for ruining her life and could not seem to go, just party and let go of it. She felt she missed it. She also told me that I'm the reason she's miserable now since I passed down my disease to our daughter. She's regretting building a family with me. Anyways, I moved out, gave them the house, and sent them more than enough so Daisy could live comfortably every week without fail. I visit my daughter until the work trip that I mentioned, and the empty chairs at my new dinner table were a constant reminder of how I miss my family. As I walk to work, I can't help but imagine us walking in this unfamiliar streets of this new city. 6 months into my work trip, Susan began pestering me to increase the child support. While I declined because it seemed unnecessary, I don't see any reason for the increase. As a response, Susan started to limit my contact with Daisy. What she's doing makes me think that she only wanted Daisy because of the child support, that she's not looking for work as far as I can remember. That's when the real drama began. I received messages from people who claimed to have overheard Susan shouting at Daisy, and groups of people were seen in my house almost every weekend, partying. But when I asked Daisy about this, she told me the people who confided in me were lying. Daisy also mentioned that sometimes they only eat frozen food, especially when her mother's busy partying or going on multi-day trips or vacations, leaving her home alone. Of course, I argued with Susan about the situation since she was creating an environment that was anything but conducive to Daisy's well-being. She said that she was sorry and it won't happen again. Since I'm out of the country, I've reached out to their neighbors and asked them to keep an eye on my family and provide me with updates on Susan's progress, to which they kindly agreed. Much to my relief, they reported an improvement in Susan's behavior, as they barely see her going out with friends and they often see them doing recreational activities during Daisy's free time, which is true, because Susan sends photos and videos of them doing art and badminton in our backyard. Yet after just a month of progress, she starts nagging me to increase the child support again, which I've refused because she still cannot give me a reason why. This made me think that she only improved because she was looking forward to that increase. Anyway, she stopped giving me updates about Daisy again, and she then called me and was furiously shouting at me, telling me I don't love our daughter and I'm selfish. Our family and friends told me I was unreasonable and that I should send the money since I was more than capable of doing so. But I still refused, as I was afraid Susan might use it for some other reason. Am I the a-hole? Top comments from the original post. Comment number 1. LOL, did she really say it's okay for you to even knock her up? Or are you too drunk to know what really happened? She had dreams and you ruined it, OP. Comment number 2. Not the a-hole at all. First of all, your wife is a crappy person. She knows your daughter's sick and she decided to do all that. I know that self-love is important, but oh my gosh, why did she suddenly decide to do self-love after all those years? She also decided to do things that are harmful to her daughter. What kind of mother is she? I'm sure she uses child support to treat her so-called friends to night outs. That's why they tolerate her behavior, because they benefit from it. Do not increase the child support. Your wife is a selfish, immature witch. Update number 1. Hey everyone, this is an update to the post that I linked before. To address some concerns, I know what I've heard and I'm sure about it. I repeatedly asked her that night if she was really ready, and she repeatedly agreed with me. Also, I stood up for my decision to not increase child support. I would not allow my ex-wife to use our daughter for her personal gain. However, Susan is now demanding again that I send her twice the amount of what I'm already sending, because Daisy has been confined in the hospital for days now, and her condition is growing worse. I was skeptical at first because I didn't trust Susan. With her given history, I demanded that she sent me evidence first that Daisy was in the hospital. Well, she gets angry and told me why would she lie about something so serious? After a few hours, she sent me a photo of Daisy, and she was indeed in the hospital, lying in a bed, surrounded by machines and monitors, and it was a heartbreaking sight, and I could barely contain my emotions as I looked at the image. As much as I wanted to visit Daisy, I'm 1,000 miles away, and I'm scheduled to go back in 2.5 or 3 months. I was feeling helpless, so I requested a video call to see my daughter. I can't help but tear up as I see those tubes and Daisy surrounded by beeping machines, and I could barely hold back my emotions as I told her how much I missed her and how much I loved her. I just wish I could take away all her pain. I immediately sent her the money that she needed so Daisy could get the best care possible. Susan was constantly communicating and updating me about Daisy's condition, but after 2 weeks she suddenly stopped responding to my calls and text. Not seeing my daughter took a toll on me. It's harder to wake up each day, and it's like there's a piece of me missing. Just an empty space that won't fill. I can't focus on work. My mind drifts away and wondering how she's doing and if she's okay. Even the simplest tasks feel like 1,000 years of work. It had been a week since I'd last seen Daisy, and I've been nagging Susan to let me see her through video calls or even send me photos, but she just keeps giving me these flimsy excuses, saying Daisy was sleeping or she was not at the hospital. So I racked my brain searching for a reason why she was keeping me away from my daughter, especially now that Daisy was not in good condition. I could not think of one. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Susan's friend, each one full of accusations and doubts, saying I'm overreacting and that my ex-wife just wanted Daisy not to be disturbed. They even told me I was selfish for not wanting my daughter to breast. Susan then told me that she needed more money for the hospital and demanded that I send more. Although I think there should have been money left from the previous transfer I made, I just did what she wanted, thinking she would update me regarding Daisy. I told my parents about this and they agreed that what Susan is doing is too suspicious. But unfortunately, as much as they want to visit Daisy, they can't. My parents are living in another country and are in a retirement home. They're too old and vulnerable to even travel. I'm also an only child, so I really don't know what to do. I told Susan I would take legal action if she continued to keep my daughter from me. Am I doing the right thing? Will taking legal action against my ex-wife be detrimental to our daughter's condition? Update number 2. Hey, I wish I could just start this update with better news, but it's with a heavy heart that I need to share the worst nightmare any parent could imagine. You all have been following my story, and I appreciate the support. It's not easy for me to say this, but my daughter Daisy is no longer with us. I can't even put into words how I found out, so please bear with how I write this story. I finally managed to make my way back home after a few months, and I was itching to see my daughter. It was quite a relief to be back on a familiar ground, but I could not shake off this nagging worry about my daughter Daisy. Now, here's where it gets crazy. My ex-wife Susan was being unbelievably tight-lipped about the whole thing. I could not find out which hospital Daisy was in. When I got back, I immediately went to our house to look for Susan and asked for updates about my daughter. But unfortunately, she wasn't there. I was furiously knocking at the door, but to no avail. No one was answering, and considering that I don't live there, I had to break in. I'll do anything to see my damn daughter. I didn't know what to feel as I entered the house and was welcomed with nothingness. The house looked like it had been abandoned for months, as dust covered every single corner. A few art materials scattered on the floor, some unwashed dishes. All I could think of, where the hell are they? I had no way of contacting Susan, so I messaged her, and even went to her family and friends so that I could find out where she was. Her friends were not very helpful. They evaded every question and shunned me. Fortunately, her cousin slipped up and told me where she was. Susan was in a small apartment, which I was so baffled because why would she leave our house and waste money for a small apartment? I couldn't help but worry if Daisy could sleep comfortably here, considering that she's been living in a spacious house all her life. Anyways, when I went to the apartment, that's where I found Susan, alone. No signs of my daughter. As I stood outside her apartment and looked around inside, I felt my heart racing. I could not see my daughter or any signs of her. I loudly asked her, "Where's Daisy?" But she just stood there with teary eyes. Before she slammed the door in my face, and I asked her again, multiple times, "Which hospital is Daisy in?" Still, she was being super secretive about it, dodging my questions like a seasoned politician. It was infuriating. I just wanted to be by my daughter's side, especially now that she was sick. I mean, all I ever wanted was to make sure she was okay. But Susan was keeping this very important information from me. What kind of mother does that? And then somebody I knew said that they had seen Susan and Daisy at a hospital. You can't imagine the rush of emotions I felt at that moment: hope, fear, and disbelief. I can't help but blame myself why I did not ask what hospital they were staying at before. Maybe I was just overwhelmed with emotions that I forgot to ask. And to add to that, the anxiety I was feeling being away from Daisy was eating me alive. But hey, this was it. I can finally see my daughter. I thanked my acquaintance, and without wasting a second, I rushed and found the hospital where my daughter was. I arrived right there at that hospital, and I could hear my heart pounding as I stepped out of my vehicle. I could feel something building up in my stomach, and I felt my hands shaking absolutely uncontrollably. I've never been this nervous before. I approached the reception desk and asked about my daughter, explaining the situation as calmly as I could manage. She asked me to go ahead and provide some ID for verification before she told me where my daughter was. Well, that receptionist's sympathetic look told me that she could sense the desperation in my voice as she searched at her computer for what felt like a damn eternity before finally giving me the location of my daughter. And it was not there. She asked me to contact my family or relatives so they could tell me what happened, as she didn't want to be the bearer of the news. I told her it's not possible, and kindly asked her if she could please, for the love of God, tell me what the hell happened. And that's when my heart stopped. The receptionist told me that Daisy was indeed there months ago. There was a long pause before she started talking again. Unfortunately, the patient, my daughter, died after just 3 weeks of being confined in the hospital. I could not believe what I just heard. I didn't have the courage to ask any more questions, so I kindly thanked her and I left before I lost everything inside of me. I felt like the hospital's walls were moving right up to me and slowly crushing me. I couldn't breathe. I ran out of the hospital, struggling to process what the hell just happened. I sat in my car. I couldn't stop my hands from trembling on the steering wheel, and the world outside seemed so surreal. I told myself, it's a dream, it's a dream, it's a dream, it's a nightmare. All I wanted was to just wake up, hear my daughter's laughter. I wanted to be pranked. Where's Ashton Kutcher saying, "Ha, you've been punked"? But there was no waking up in the nightmare that I've entered. I kept asking myself how this could have happened, how my daughter was gone, and why no one had informed me. I didn't know where to go or what to do, so I sat in my car for hours, and I was lost, overwhelmed by different emotions. I needed answers, and I needed to find out what happened in the months that I've been away. As I drove back to our empty house, I could not hold back the tears, the realization that I would never see my daughter's smiling face again was too much to bear. I wept as I picked up the art materials my daughter used, and I just hugged them. All I could think of was, I should have rejected the work opportunity. I should have stayed to take care of her. Maybe right now we're drawing monsters at my apartment, or if I'm not too focused on my work, hey, maybe we're all here, complete, doing God knows what, who knows? I just wanted to see her and hold her tiny hand. I miss my daughter. I miss you, Daisy. What was been going through my mind was, why did no one tell me what happened? Did Susan not inform anyone and just hold the funeral all by herself? And if Daisy was dead for months, why did Susan keep receiving the child support? I'm lost and want to know what happened to my daughter, but I have nobody to ask. Anyways, I've reached out to some close friends and family for support and advice. They urged me to consult an attorney to simply understand my rights and explore what could have been done in this exact situation. It seemed like the only course of action. Am I doing the right thing? Your guidance and advice is appreciated. If any of you have been through something like this or anything, let me know. Please share your suggestions below. You all have been very helpful to me. Thank you for everything. Update number 3. Hey people, it's me again. I know, it's been a while and I apologize for not updating sooner. The last few months have been draining and full of legal proceedings and trying to make sense of everything that happened. To give you all a quick update on the situation, legal action has been taken against my ex-wife Susan for what she did, for hiding the truth about our daughter's death, Daisy. I'm grateful for the support and advice many of you have provided, and I have used those to keep me going. You guys deserve to know what happened after I discovered what happened to my daughter, so here it goes. I took my time to process what happened before I acted on it. I locked myself in my apartment for days, only going out to buy food and alcohol. I drank myself to sleep and momentarily escaped reality and forgot what had been happening to me. I know, I'm not proud of myself either, but I don't blame myself. I was in pain. I just felt alone, with my daughter gone. Don't get me wrong, my friends and family reached out when they knew what happened. But I told them to leave me alone in the meantime and let me grieve. Of course they were furious. They all bonded with Daisy and formed connections with her. She was our little sunshine. And her laughter was so infectious, you couldn't resist it. Oh, how I miss her little pranks. Moving on. One day, I just heard the doorbell ring. I was irritated, and I just told them I needed time alone, so why the hell were they here? I ignored the doorbell, but then they started banging at the door, so I opened it. There was the least expected person I wanted to see, standing outside my door looking miserable just like me. It was my ex-wife right there in front of me. My mind went blank. I don't know what to think or feel. I wanted to shout at her for keeping what happened to Daisy from me and all those immature acts that she has done. But I couldn't seem to find the energy for it. I'm not ready to face her. I asked what she was doing at my apartment, and she said she wanted to ask for money. How could she lie in front of me about my daughter? I aggressively pulled her inside and I locked that door. This woman didn't know what I already knew happened. I threatened her that if she didn't tell me the truth, I would not allow her to leave my apartment. I would not call the police. And that's when she confessed everything, when she saw the glimmer of a killer in my eyes. Apparently, things got out of hand when Daisy was in the hospital. She was scared and stressed and wanted comfort from her friends, so they invited her for drinks, like what they always do, and that's where they offered her illegal substances, to which she agreed due to the gravity of the situation. Susan said it was too late when she realized that her so-called friends have been milking her. That's why she's been milking me. Anyways, things led to another, and she was so wasted that she neglected our daughter. By the time she returned to the hospital, our daughter was gone. She blamed herself for what happened, and she blamed me more. I couldn't even grasp what she was attempting to say. After all that I've done for this family, this is what I get? She told me that I was the reason our daughter was dead because I didn't give a damn about my daughter in the first place. She blamed me for not being by Daisy's side when she needed me the most. I didn't know, and I doubted myself. Am I also the reason why Daisy's gone? Anyways, Susan said she was too ashamed to tell other people what happened, so she owned the problem, did the paperwork and the funeral by herself, and used some of the money to give Daisy a decent funeral and burial. I couldn't imagine what she had been through, but if she only reached out to me, things would have been different. Like me, she could not bring herself back home, so she continued receiving the child support that I've been sending since she's jobless and can't afford to pay the rent on her own. Her rent is almost due. That's why she's here now. Demanding more money, the audacity of this woman. After we talked, I demanded that we visit our daughter's grave. When we were there, I cried my heart out and apologized to my daughter for not being there and for not having a better parent. Susan told me she's now ready to face any consequences that she will cooperate. As I've mentioned, the legal proceedings have been going on, so now Susan has to face the consequences of her actions in court. No excuses will help her escape for what she's done. As for the next steps, the legal process is ongoing, and I'll continue to keep you updated. The process has been emotionally draining, but I'm doing it only for my daughter, but for all those who have supported and encouraged me. So I want to express my gratitude to all you and to my family and friends who have been with me throughout this. I can't thank you enough. Please keep my daughter Daisy in your thoughts. Her memory lives on, and I promise that her life is remembered with love and respect. Update number 4. Hey guys, it's me again. It's been months since my last update, but I'm just here to share the latest updates of my ex-wife, Susan. It's a wild ride, and I genuinely appreciate the support. The legal proceedings against Susan have ended. She was guilty of committing fraud, deception, and endangering the welfare of our daughter. The court has sentenced her to serve time in prison, and she also required to make amends for the fraudulent child support she took from me. While this cannot bring my daughter back, I'm just happy that justice has been served and Susan was held accountable for her actions. As for me, I'm still grieving, but I think that I'm better now, and of course there's always this heavy feeling in me, and I can't help but think about the what-ifs and missed moments. But hey, I'm hanging in there, and each day it gets a little bit easier. I'm now back in my office, and actually it's my lunch break while I'm typing this. It's been a tough journey, but I'm getting there. The memory of my daughter, Daisy, will be forever in my heart, and I'm dedicated to honoring her by actively working towards creating a brighter future for our children. That's why I've decided to establish a charity fund in her name, supporting children with congenital heart disease. I'm very grateful to all of you who have supported, advised, and stood beside me. Well, your advice and encouragement greatly helped me on the journey. Thank you. To my family, to my friends, and the community here. This chapter may be ending, but my story continues. You know what? I am so glad that Susan was finally facing some repercussions for her actions, which she was found guilty of fraud, deception, and child endangerment. And I don't know, we haven't really seen from her perspective, but there's not much she can say to get herself out of this mess. The truth is, she was not there for that little girl, Daisy. She was not there when she needed her, and she had the audacity to blame all this on OP, and it made me sick to my stomach. But I want to know your thoughts, guys, because I was trying not to, get emotional reading this story, just of how much it seemed Daisy was suffering. I want to know your thoughts about it though, so drop your comments down below in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito, and if you guys want daily drama stories just like today, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for that subscribing, and I just hope you know it's cool to be kind. Peace.